Millions of Americans are now on the brink of seeing their health insurance costs skyrocket when extended subsidies for Obamacare users expire at the end of the day tomorrow. Recently, CNN met one couple in New Jersey whose monthly premium will spike from $340, kind of manageable there, to almost $2,000 starting January 1st. They can't afford it, and they say it means they'll have to be uninsured. They're far from alone. There are 24 million Obamacare enrollees. Over the last month on Capitol Hill, Democratic and Republican lawmakers tried to address the problem, but days before Christmas, the Republican-led House and Senate adjourned, and Congress left town without a deal. According to the latest polling from the nonprofit Kaiser Family Foundation, most enrollees blame the president and Republicans for what happens after tomorrow. 34% faulting Trump, 29% Republicans, while 19% will blame Democrats. Veteran pollster and communications strategist Frank Luntz is with us now. Frank, Speaker Johnson and President Trump, and we hear it from Republicans over and over, blaming Obamacare for this. We should note fact checkers have found Obamacare didn't play that role in hugely increasing insurance premium costs. But of course, we know that doesn't always factor into whether voters believe something or not. Are voters buying this finger pointing on Obamacare?
No, and they don't like it, and they resent it, and this is going to play a major role in the 2026 election. The shutdown that we experienced, the longest ever in American history, started off hurting Democrats more than Republicans, ended up hurting President Trump more than anybody else. If the government does shut down because they still can't find a solution to this, it's going to be very painful for the Republican Party because, as you note, every survey, every poll that's out there shows that Republicans will be hurt more by this than Democrats. But in the end, it's not about polling. It's not about politics or about elections. In the end, we have a significant percentage, millions and millions of people who cannot afford their health care. And this becomes an issue not just of affordability, but expense. I know it sounds the same, but in the polling that we've done, the public thinks that American healthcare is simply too expensive, and they will be grateful for any solution that brings down that cost.
Yeah, how on the hook are Republicans for providing that solution? Because when we talk to them, they talk a lot about Republican proposals to address the cost of health care, and yet it's been 15 years since Obamacare passed, and you have these subsidies about to expire and ratcheting up the pressure.
Well, the pressure is significant, and in the end, it doesn't matter whether it's the subsidy. What matters is the overall cost. The public does not know the details of this, and frankly, they don't really care. If they can afford their health care, they're grateful. If they can't, they're angry. They're pissed off. And that is what both sides need to hear, that Democrats are wrong for pushing a government-oriented solution. Republicans are wrong for pushing free market. Both. We don't want government bureaucrats determining our health care. We don't want insurance company bureaucrats. We simply want to have the choice and the control, the affordability, and delivered by the doctors and hospitals that we trust. And it's a very simple process. It's very expensive. They said it was going to be this expensive when Obamacare was passed back, as you say, a dozen years ago, but they have to solve it. And because the Republicans are in charge, they will be expected to have that solution.
George W. Bush's former advisor, Karl Rove, put out his perspective on the political year that was 2025, writing, Americans would be much more likely to support Mr. Trump if he explained what he's doing and asked for patience as his administration makes necessary changes, but that isn't his way. Presidents do best when they underpromise and overdeliver. The opposite, overpromising and underdelivering, angers voters. They often take out their anger at the ballot box. What does President Trump and Republicans have to do if they don't want voters to take that out on them at the ballot box come the midterms?
Well, let's talk about healthcare and stay on that topic. There is a system, it's called HSAs, and they provide a little bit more limited care, but they give people the choice and control that they want and need. And that is a solution because it makes healthcare much more affordable. but they're not doing a good enough job explaining that the party is divided right now. The Democrats are not united either. And the fact is, the only thing that's less popular right now than the Republican Party is the Democratic Party. Polls, including yours, show Democrats at an all-time low in terms of public support, in terms of credibility. Right now, it's a pox on both your houses, and I've cleaned up my language there because the public is tired of both sides yelling at each other, blaming each other while things get worse.
I do want to ask you, this Thursday, New York's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, will be inaugurated. And there is a big kind of soul-searching and a tug of war going on in the Democratic Party about what their brand should be, right? What kind of Democrats they want to be. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to introduce him. Senator Bernie Sanders will give Mamdani's oath of office. What do you think, as Democrats are looking towards 2026, about who should be the face of their party, about their options, and the direction or directions they can go?
It's an interesting point that you call it a brand, because brand is what you say about yourself to others. And I think it's far more important in politics to speak about reputation, which is what others say about you. If the Democratic brand is this new New York mayor, is AOC, is Bernie Sanders, that's a very limiting brand. And that does not entice people who left the Democratic Party in 2024 and voted for Donald Trump and voted for Republicans. That I think it's important for both political parties to know that in the end, you don't win by appealing to the people at the extremes. You win by appealing to people in the center. And I know that that's not sexy. I know that there'll be a ton of people complaining about that in responses to this segment. But it is a fact that the candidate and the party that does attract those centrist, non-aligned, independent voters, that's the party that governs for the next 2 or 4 years.
Frank Luntz, always great to have you. A happy new year to you, my friend.
Same to you.